Malik Patterson had finally achieved his dream of owning a home in a prestigious neighborhood, Brentwood Estates, Tennessee. A two-story brick house with a wraparound veranda and a spacious backyard. It was everything he had envisioned. But from the very first day, he felt watched. Peering eyes behind curtains, lingering glances from neighbors walking their dogs. No one came to introduce themselves. No warm welcomes. Just silence. Then came the knock on the door. Barbara Whitman, president of the Brentwood Estates Homeowners Association, HOA, stood on his porch. Dressed impeccably in beige, pearl earrings, and a brooch bearing the HOA emblem, she introduced herself with a rigid posture and an unreadable expression. "I wanted to go over a few things," she said, handing Malik a thick packet of documents. He skimmed through it: lawn maintenance requirements, approved mailbox designs, exterior paint restrictions, standard HOA fare. But then she added, "We strive to uphold a certain standard here." Her eyes flicked toward the moving truck still parked in his driveway. "I assume you'll have that removed by this evening." Malik arched a brow. "Once I'm done unpacking." Barbara nodded, but it wasn't in satisfaction. More like she was mentally recording his response. "That's satisfactory. And just so you're aware, the HOA requires trash bins to be placed at the curb no earlier than 6 a.m. on collection day. Yours were out last night." "I didn't put them there. Must have been the previous owners." Barbara pursed her lips. "I see. Well, in the future, please be mindful. We have rules for a reason." And just like that, she was gone. Malik sighed and shut the door. Maybe she was just particular. Plenty of HOA presidents were. He wasn't about to let one uptight neighbor ruin his fresh start. But Barbara wasn't just particular. She was watching. Within a week, Malik received multiple notices: an unauthorized vehicle in his driveway, his own car, grass growing an inch too high, and a porch light that was too bright despite being the same fixture the previous owner had used. A new violation arrived in his mailbox each morning, neatly folded and stamped with the HOA seal. The final straw came when he received a notice about his garbage bins. They had to be retrieved within an hour of collection. Frustrated, he decided to test a theory. The next morning, he took a walk around the neighborhood. By 9 a.m., dozens of bins still lined the curbs, some overflowing. Not a single violation notice on any of them. Just his. He took pictures and emailed the HOA board, asking why only his receptacles were an issue. No response. 2 days later, Barbara returned. She didn't knock. She just stood there, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning his house as if taking inventory. Malik opened the door and leaned against the frame. "Something I can help you with?" Barbara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she presented a form. "This is a formal request for you to submit proof of homeownership." His stomach tightened. "Excuse me. We've had complaints," she said smoothly. "Neighbors have noticed unusual activity, different cars coming and going, furniture deliveries at odd hours. Some are concerned you may be renting this property in violation of HOA regulations." Malik's laugh was sharp. "You're kidding." Barbara didn't flinch. He forced himself to take a steady breath. "First off, I own this house. Second, I've lived here less than a month. I'm still moving in, hence the deliveries. And as for the cars, those are friends and family visiting." Barbara's grip on her clipboard tightened. "We have policies to ensure all homeowners are properly vetted. We'll need to verify your deed." Malik's jaw clenched. "You can pull the records yourself. It's public information." Her pupils contracted slightly before she recovered. "I'd prefer if you submitted it directly. And if I don't?" She smiled, cold and calculated. "Then I'll have no choice but to escalate the matter with the HOA board." Malik inhaled deeply, willing himself not to react. She wanted him to be angry, to lash out. Instead, he grinned. "I'll think about it." Then he shut the door. That night, he saw her again, standing at the end of his driveway with another man in khakis and a polo shirt. She spoke in hushed tones, gesturing toward his house. The man nodded and scribbled something on a notepad. Barbara wasn't just trying to intimidate him. She was actively seeking a way to force him out. The next morning, Malik received an HOA violation email about his porch furniture. His outdoor wicker chairs and glass table did not meet aesthetic standards. He ignored it. The following day, another notice arrived, this time about lawn maintenance. His lawn had been freshly mowed, edged, and watered, yet he was accused of neglect. Malik had had enough. That evening, he walked the neighborhood, photographing real violations: overgrown lawns, broken shutters, faded house numbers, trash bins left out for days. He filed his own complaints, complete with timestamps and photos. Barbara returned within 24 hours, this time with Stephen Reynolds, the HOA vice president. "We received your list of complaints," she said tightly. "Good. Then you know I'm not the only one being held to ridiculous standards." Stephen cleared his throat, shifting uneasily. "The HOA board determines which issues warrant action. Not every minor infraction requires a formal notice." Malik scoffed. "So mine do, but everyone else's don't." Barbara ignored him, handing him a final warning. "Your porch furniture must be replaced, and your lawn must remain at regulated length at all times." Malik smirked. "I've read the HOA bylaws. Nowhere does it say I need to replace perfectly good furniture." Barbara stiffened. "It's a matter of neighborhood uniformity. So you enforce rules that don't exist?" His tone was cool, deliberate. Barbara's jaw twitched. Stephen hesitated, doubt creeping into his eyes. "If I were someone else, one of my neighbors, would we even be having this conversation?" Malik asked. Silence. He folded the notice and nodded. "That's what I thought." Barbara forced a tight smile. "If you refuse to comply, the HOA has the authority to take further action." Malik held her gaze. "Then do what you have to do." Barbara stormed off. A month later, the HOA board voted to remove Barbara from her position due to multiple complaints of harassment and discrimination. With her power gone, her influence in the neighborhood crumbled. She and her husband quietly sold their home and moved away. Malik, now free from her constant scrutiny, finally settled into his dream home. One evening, a neighbor hesitantly approached him with a batch of cookies. "I guess we never gave you a proper welcome," she admitted. Malik chuckled, taking a bite. "Took you long enough. But better late than never."